Good evening, all. Welcome to today's session, which is particularly focusing on design economics and cost planning. This is directly in relation with construction technology, commercial management, and quantification and costing. Because all this skill area, it is directly relevant to other three core competencies. Even though if you are not specifically taken design economics and cost planning as your core competency, if at all it is there in your optional at level 2 or it's not there at all, then it will be help you to uh, improve the thought process when you are handling commercial management, particularly because commercial management, it is about similar proactive measures that you do in the design economics and cost planning. Although design economics part, it is specifically in the stages 1 to 4, but when you come to design and build, if the contract is design and build, then commercial management, it will involve the design development also. So which is coming from detailed design development, which is coming within the construction phase because it's in the design and build contract. Similarly, quantification and costing, it is common to both. Although you are doing cost estimate within the design economics for cost planning purpose, the process are similar. You are going to benchmark, utilize some in-house cost data or publicly published cost data similar to BCIS. Everything will be helpful in preparing the BOQ. Either it is NRM1 or NRM2 that is going to help you to price, which is precisely matching your market conditions. So we have some of the questions here. Although if you are trying to answer it, that is fine, well and good. If not, just we will discuss about what are all the important things to consider when answering, or what are all the important steps and procedures involved in the particular task. So the first question is about economics of design. So you are designing, that time you need to do what sort of economical consideration needs to be implemented. A developer client is considering two options for a new residential scheme. Option A with a high site density and lower story heights versus option B with the lower density and higher story heights. Advise the client on the cost implications of the differing design parameters, specifically focusing on the wall to floor ratio and non-lettable space core area, which is not within the rentable or sellable area. So anybody wants to try or say something about this? Okay, so it's fine. I hope this design economics are is nobody's. Yes, Shifat, you want to say something?
I think that mainly that some kind of rectangular building kind of structure may be recommended for this. If I understand
Okay,
correctly.
that is shape.
Shape of the building. The cost implications.
Because here what we have is particularly about the lower density or higher density. That means we are having smaller area of sections. That means highly, something like if you go to in UAE, if you are in the Dubai, the room sizes will be bigger compared to Sharjah or Ajman. So this is density. So you have more apartments within the floor with a higher density. That means the wall to floor ratio will be higher because you will have more walls, less floor area. But if it is lower density, that means the space is more. So you will have more floor area than wall area. So those kind of things. And again, the height also, the story heights, that means you will have different height, 10 feet, 12 feet, something like that. You can have, usually we have in Dubai like 3.6 meter, that is around 12 feet. So considering the height of wall, also it is a important factor when you are calculating wall to floor ratio. And again, when you do this kind of things, you cannot reduce the record space for common areas like corridor, lift lobby, those kind of things will be there. So when you consider option A, so this will be having more efficient ratio, potentially reducing the external envelope cost by meter squared. That means grass floor area. In the option B might increase the ratio due to taller elevation because that is higher story height and potentially thicker structural elements. When you increase the height, automatically you need to go for more thicker elements like the core walls, columns, all these things will be thicker than the lower height elements. So this increase cladding structure cost and again non-lettable space. Higher density can mean more efficient floor plates but could also increase core area because lifts, stairs to meet fire access regulations increasing the net to grass ratio. So net area and the grass area because you have more space that is lettable in comparison to option B where it is you are having the more high ratio. So the key advice is the final recommendation. What should you give build cost per meter square grass floor area against the potential sale or rental value per meter squared of lettable area. So you have to consider how this is economical. That is the thing you need to consider. So it is not one rule that fits everywhere. So that's what we discussed. So other than that, it is not like we can decide based on only the height or floor to wall ratio. That is not the case because we usually get into this by considering the area we built and the demand how we have. So we have to consider the pricing point. Okay. Yes, Mr. Joshi. Okay. So if there is nothing further, let us move on to next question, which is about cost data and benchmarking. So always we have to do benchmarking to go ahead with the cost plan. That is to control the cost because if we don't know what is the cost we are going to bill, then it will be difficult to control. So we have to have some sort of benchmarking for the specific type of development while we are considering how we will implement that. So here your firm is preparing a strategic cost estimate for a unique industrial project where comparable data is scarce. That means it is not available. So it is not that is readily comparable. Maybe it is irrelevant or in different area or different location factors or time factor, those kind of things are there. So if you have more data, it will be more accurate. If you have less, that means scarce. So it will be difficult for you to develop a benchmark. So explain your methodology for using a combination of BCIS, in-house data and external sources, including how you would manage and validate the inevitable discrepancies between them to provide robust estimate. So that means we have to get to somewhat realistic estimate. Otherwise, the cost planning would not be appropriate. So what we have to do here? So you can use, because they are mentioning, try to use of something like BCIS or external data sources. Anybody having some idea? Okay, here the prime factor where we have to focus is about the critical application, how we want to do data validation and risk. When we start with some BCA kind of data that is completely irrelevant to our location. So in that kind of situations, you can take and apply location and time adjustment. And in-house data means it will be more reliable because if you have something from your own experience, that is going to be more reliable. Otherwise, you can use something that is published for your region. If you have published the data, something for Middle East, we have spawns, those kind of data it is available, and some of the material data cost indices for the construction materials, it is published by Dubai Chamber of Commerce and Abu Dhabi Statistical Department. This is I am particularly mentioning from my experience in UAE. But other than that, you can consider your own local experience that will be very helpful. So take into consideration of those available data for you and try to relate them, because you need to make validation and identify any discrepancies, because although you have some sort of in-house data, since we mentioned it is scarce, that means limited, similar type of project, or you did some project very long time ago, now you want to implement that, that is not going to be the direct reference. So you have to make sure that how you will consider like inflation and other risk contingency. So inflation is there. Every country they have currency inflation. Every year there is some sort of, this is government announced. So you have to take into consideration from publicly available inflation data. Cost escalation is something else. That is, you have to follow from the indices. As I mentioned, Abu Dhabi Statistical Department or Dubai Chamber of Commerce, they are publishing in UAE. So that indices, it will help you to understand the escalation. Escalation is the change in the material cost. But fluctuation or inflation are different. So fluctuation, it may go up or down during the construction itself. That you should cover with the risk allowances. That means contingency. But inflation, clearly you know very well from the government published data. So you have to take into consideration in your risk contingency what percentage you are incorporate within your estimation. So once you do these things and analyze and reconcile by adjusting the scope, specification, procurement route and market conditions, then some sort of reliable benchmarking you would be able to prepare. That's what we have to consider in this kind of situation. So anybody wants to discuss or have some doubt? If nothing, let us move on to next question. Inflation. So as I mentioned in the previous, so here how the inflation it is applicable for tender or construction. Explain the difference between tender price index and inputs cost index. So these two are different. As I said, cost is for your material, labor, those kind of things, direct, indirect cost. But tender price index, it is tendency to price by the tenderers. How they are pricing? They are putting more markup, more contingency or risk allowances they are incorporating based on the type of data or the type of client, employer whom they are submitting the bid. So these kind of informations are important. So how they tend to submit the tender bid, that is comes under the tender price index. It cannot be clearly justified because it is the market movement. So it is based on the sentimental condition during that period in the market. Maybe if it's like exactly when you are in the booming, yes, they try to take advantage of, because they are not in a hurry to take up the work. So they have so many work in hand and they just try, if it comes within their considerable markup at a higher level, then only they will be taking this. So they price at higher level. If it is very difficult, nobody is getting job and the market is very slow, you are in the financial cycle at the low end, then everybody wants to get the job. So they will go down and reduce their markup profit range, and it may go down very closer to the cost. So in that case, that tender price index will be closer to the cost. Otherwise, it will be away from the cost. It will be very high. So how would you use both in advising a client who is fixing their budget now, but won't award the main contract for 18 months? So that is going to be again a difficult point. So you have to consider the inflation, and you have to take into consideration not only inflation and also during a period of high material price volatility. So that means its movement, fluctuation. So how it is moving. So what is the maximum range it moved between 8 months period. So you have to consider the highest value. That will be the risk. So you will see the trend analysis of the input cost index that will be taken into consideration for high materials price volatility. And tender price index, again, you have to follow because BCIS in UK kind of environment, everybody they disclose their pricing details to the public and all is open. But it is not the case in Middle East or in Asia Pacific region. So we have to take into consideration what your own experience from your previous projects. So that's what it will be helpful, or some sort of colliers, they are publishing some sort of worldwide comparative tender price index and construction cost. So those kind of things they are doing, but it will not be in detail, in depth, and you cannot take it to your specific project. That is the problem because it is holistic approach. So you can take into consideration of some sort of helpfulness from that, how it moved. So that will be helpful because every quarter they are publishing. So you will know for 18 months period, you will get at least 6 to 7 reports. So that will give you a period relevant to that. What is the maximum? Maybe you can take the trend analysis and project it for next 18 months. That will be helpful. And again, you have to take it for net present value for that and compare them and then advise. That's what important when you are doing it for inflation using the tender price index and input cost index. Okay, Mr. Joshi, are you there? Okay. So next one is the location factors, regional variations. Oh, maybe on the holistic, you may find it similar. Location and the regional. Usually the location, although it will give exactly the different region or area, but still here we consider it as a country specific. And when we mention regional, it is area specific. So within the country, where do you want to build? Maybe it's a, as it is mentioned here, you are preparing an elemental cost plan for a commercial project in a non-major metropolitan area. That means outside, outskirts. How would you apply location factors to a benchmark project completed in the capital city? That means it is in the capital of your state. And what specific regional cost drivers would you need to investigate beyond just general market data? So general market data, it is going to give supply cost. So other than that, what factors do you need to consider, particularly addressing this? So here the focus has to be application of cost adjustments and identification of local drivers. So here what you will apply? So something similar to BCIS or your in-house data, which is you are relying on the benchmark. Then you have to take into the consideration of the shifting of labor, plant, all these logistical cost differences you have to consider first. Then that is the starting point, and other specific you have to consider the local factors by investigating how it will impact your different construction methods, availability, particular specialist subcontractor cost in that region, maybe some high specific facade installers you want to bring it to the outside the city area, that may need additional cost because not only your own labor and things, you have to consider how it is going to be affecting your pricing point. If they are not willing to come, what will be your next option? So those kind of things we have to consider primarily. And then you have to see the local authority fees, unique planning requirement, specific site logistics. So something like traffic restrictions, how the accessibility differs in comparison with your existing benchmark project that was there in your capital city. Okay, so it will be helpful when pricing using the benchmark from the different location or regional differences. Okay, Let us move on to next one. Currency fluctuations. You can say what is the difference between the general fluctuations what we had discussed already. That is for the material. Within a region, specific area, you may get fluctuation in the cost of the material or labor. But when you are dealing with here, the example is the UK based client. Client is from UK, so he is going to pay from his currency, undertaking a large infrastructure project in the Middle East zone. So with a significant proportion of plant and specialist materials being sourced from non-Euro countries, particularly China, US kind of things. So again, you are going to import materials and also some plants where your client is based in UK. So he is going to incur some cost of transferring into Middle East region. So advise the client on cost risk mitigation strategies related to currency fluctuation. How do you do that? So primary is the risk identification. You have to identify the currency exposure. So primarily you are getting into either euro or sterling pound that is converted into AED for whole of the works. At the same time, you have to pay by USD or Chinese currency. Those kind of things you may incur. Another exchange value. A strengthening USD against the euro so increases the project cost. So this is one scenario. So how would you mitigate? Mitigate means hedging, advice on forward buying currency. So you can buy the currency itself. You are going to buy products from one specific source. Okay, this is going to be spent in US dollar only. You can buy the currencies upfront and keep your money in that currency. That is one kind of strategy. The second one, contract strategy. So use fixed exchange rate. That means you will fix something between your supplier and yourself. This will be the exchange rate. This is the fixed cost. What you will pay for him based on your currency. Already he has to quote you to your currency. Then you will be paying on that currency. It will be fixed exchange rates. And procurement, you can source the materials from different where it will be more economical based on the currency zone. So which area you want to, either because you have choices between China and US, then you can decide which location you want to take advantage of. So that one also you can consider. So we have to take into consideration of the fluctuation in that particular country also. That is also the thing you have to keep in mind and allow some risk percentage as contingency. These are the things you will take into consideration before advising the client on currency fluctuation risk. Anybody wants to say something or add some points or discuss something further? Okay, let us move on to next question. State of the construction market and economy generally, that means locally and globally. How do you translate your macroeconomic knowledge, that means that is specific to your area of practice, and global interest rates, local GDP growth, geopolitical stability into tangible cost and risk advice for a client about to start the tender process for a multi-year project? That means the project going to prolong more than a year approximately. So it may be going for 2-3 years or even 5 years. It can be the consideration. So strategic market analysis and risk translation we have to do here. High global interest rates, inflation lead to increased cost. So that one also there for both client and the contractor, because that will affect any imported material or those kind of things. So when you have strong local GDP growth, that is also signals high demand, because GDP relevant to your country's growth. So that is going to indicate the high demand of requirements, leading to tender price fluctuation. That is also there, because this TPI going to, when there are demand in your local market, automatically the TPI, it will go up. It will move away higher than the cost. And again, subcontractors shortages would happen because when there are more development, specialist subcontractor cost will be higher because their availability will be scarce. So we have to consider this tender price risk, advise the risk of premium pricing by contractors due to full order books. That means they are already engaged sufficiently. They just take if it adds value to their business. Otherwise, it will not be helpful for them. So they try to avoid by pricing higher. So longer tender period to encourage better pricing. So you can try to give more time, let them go through the details, because if you pressurize, they will add contingency allowances higher directly and they will give the tender returns. So you have to advise on giving the longer period for tendering with sufficient time for tender clarifications or identifying the area to develop further and provide additional details, clarifications. And contingency, increase the construction risk contingency to account for potential labor material supply chain, because this is again the specialist subcontractor suppliers. When it is high demand, so it will be very difficult to get competitive price. Consider early contractor involvement to lock in prices, relationships, and manage supply chain risk. So that is also another. If you are having someone working with you in previous projects, you can try to negotiate and employ him directly by negotiated tender instead of going for selective or open tendering. That will give some like long-term relationship, so goodwill point. It will add benefit to your construction cost to keep in control. So those kind of things also helpful when you are doing this kind of tender process advice. So next one is again this interest rate. So it is going in detail how it is going to affect directly or indirectly impact a project's whole life costing, appraisal, and the final net present value of the development. So this is also when you are considering the interest rate. This is also determine the discount rate applied in the whole life cycle costing, either whole life costing or life cycle costing also. When you are applying the discount rate, so it is also derived from your interest rate available. A higher discount rate significantly reduces the net present value. So it will not be helpful because your net present value will be lower when you apply higher discount rate. And it makes the projects high upfront capital cost because the value get reduced at a higher rate. On the long term basis, it will become less attractive because you are getting very limited capital benefit in comparison to interest rate. So this is cost of finance, particularly cost of finance for anybody, maybe the contractor or the supplier, subcontractors, everybody, they are considering this internal rate of return based on the discount rate what they are applying to the project cost. So we have to see how we will mitigate this risk. A high interest environment that also favors projects with lower initial capital cost. So you have to go for economical development rather than luxurious one. And faster payback period. So which has higher demand, you have to develop those kind of things. You should not think about long-term development in this kind of situation. So you have to see which gives you immediate benefit. Payback time should be faster. It should not be longer. So in that case, it will be beneficial even though it is in the high interest environment. Otherwise, it will be less attractive, then the client may not be interested to fund or develop this project. So we have to see how to mitigate this. Okay, let us move on to next question. Cost planning and control. Explain the difference in purpose, detail, and accuracy between a cost per unit estimate, which is order of cost estimate, and an elemental cost plan. So how you will develop into further stages. So describe how you transition and validate the cost from one to other during the design development process for a major building project. This is major building. So it's not infrastructure or something specific. It is major building project only. So we have to see what is the focus point, mainly the process management and cost evaluation. So it is going to improve or divided into many categories when you have order of cost estimate, initial feasibility level, and then you will go into detail accurate level. So based on single unit cost, which you have per square meter area or cost per key, cost per bed or cost per people, those kind of things. So that will be used to strategic decision making, either to go or no go. That's all. But when you go into elemental cost plan, when you are using something like NRM1, so you will develop into substructure, shell, services, finishes, those kind of things in detail. So the initial accuracy may be somewhere around 15 to 20% as per industry standards. It's not something clearly, it has to be compared with your in-house data to the particular region. But on the outset, usually it will be somewhere around 15 to 20%. Then when you are going into elemental level, it will be somewhere around 10% up or down. It is the allowance you should keep. Used for design control and cost checking. How would you do this? You will have overall, then you will divide it based on your benchmarking, how you would apply to your different elements like substructure, shell, and then services or finishes, external works, those kind of things. How would you break into different elemental level breakdown? That will be divided based on your benchmark costing to apply and control the cost during the design development. So this transition occur once the brief is defined. So first client's brief will be defined, based on which you will develop a conceptual design that will be helpful to validate breaking down the initial unit rate into elemental targets. These are targets because this cost plan, it is approximately divided from the unit cost using your benchmark, after which you will control the design developments to be closer within the price range for the particular populated cost of your in-house data. So once you do that one, then you may bring some of the regular suppliers, subcontractors who are ready to share the informations regularly with you. Maybe some of the specialist subcontractor you will take and reconcile how it is going to impact at further level of detail. So you will apply them to the next level. So this initial total estimate and the budget, that will be explaining your variance. So that is helpful in transitioning from one level to other. That's what it is important when you are applying your cost plan. Okay. Anybody having something to discuss or to share from your experience? I hope no one is having design economics and cost planning into your core, or you are not into the final assessment yet. Okay, let us move on to next question. So whole life cycle costing, here again, a public sector client must choose between a cheap, low spec facade and a high spec, high cost facade system. Using the principles of whole life cycle costing, this will be outline the methodology you would use to justify the potentially higher initial cost of the premium system. So he is in dilemma whether he wants to go for a high specific high cost facade system or low specific low cost cheaper one. So which one he wants to do based on the whole life costing. So we have to consider when you are applying whole life costing as a strategic decision making, we have to consider the entire cost over the assets lifespan, like capital cost, design and construction, future maintenance and operating cost, something like energy, cleaning, repairs. So based on your benchmark only, you would be able to say the specialist subcontractor or the supplier, they would be giving you the tentative repair cost that may need to maintain the structure facade system. So again, replacement or disposal cost after some certain period. So this time you have to apply the income as well as tax. So how would you do the salvation cost? And you have to provide your justification based on these elements and see what are the alternatives, like both options you have to find fully how they are going to give, like establish lifespan using the discount rate method. You have to apply the initial capital cost modeling, and then your future cost for both systems. The specific high specific system, it will have lower maintenance and repair cycles and better thermal performance that will reduce the energy consumption. You will have energy efficiency. So based on that, you will apply NPV. And similarly, you will apply the same thing for the lower specific one. That is also, it will have a higher cycle of maintenance and repair and lower salvation cost. That includes less thermal productivity, that may need a higher energy consumption cost of the operating. So all these things you have to compare, and financially sound investment which is going to give you overall benefit based on the whole life costing, because it's not particularly for initial cost only, it is going to be for whole life costing. You have to consider everything and apply, and then only you will be able to justify which is better. Once you decide, then based on that you can provide your justification whether to go for premium or cheap alternative. Okay, let us move on to next question. So which is particularly for value engineering or value management. So these are two different things, but primarily in construction we are dealing with value engineering. Value management, it is the functional aspect, it is applied discretely. You don't do it as a individual workshop or exercise. So it will not be shown specifically how you are performing value management. Value management, it is implemented throughout the design development. So until you finalize and let it be ready for the, yes, Joshi, you want to say something?
Yes, sir. This value engineering and value management. This I have gone through this difference during my assessment,
Yes,
so
please.
I can also share some knowledge for this one.
Please go ahead.
See, this value management, it is the strategic and complex procedure which is applied in the beginning of the projects. Value management and value engineering is the detailed engineering solution for the specific element of the project. So it is the basic difference in this two is this time of application, and second is the value management is the broad approach. That means they are seeing the whole thing at one point, for one conclusion. But value engineering is for the technical aspect, and it is for the comparison between the what is the savings is there, cost is saving, like this approach is there. And value management, it is a multidisciplinary. That means requiring workshop with diverse stakeholders, or often involves facilitator. But value engineering is the single disciplinary approach for the elements, sir.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So when we are looking into this, it is particularly the value management is proactive process. Value engineering is reactive. So you get into a specific situation for a specific development, and you want to find alternative construction method or material or different design solutions, then only we will apply value engineering. That is the thing. And when you do value management, it is usually in the design development, achieving the required functions for the best value. So here design meets the client's needs and objectives while providing best value. So we want to ensure that this is throughout the design development. Every aspect, whenever we take decisions of choices, when we develop the design, so it has to be considered how the best value is achieved, getting the right project. from the beginning.
I
But
have a doubt
value
here.
engineering, yes, Shifat.
Sorry, Sindhu. Actually, like in one of my project, like during the construction stage, the building was supposed to be for G+4. Okay, and due to some authority restriction, nearby metro or something, it was got approved. I mean G+3 only. So then the client, I mean, we find a VE or value management, what it called. I'm just thinking about it. So the parking area we have utilized, and we have, I mean, the flats which was supposed to be in G+4 something, it was managed with that. So that called value engineering or value management. How, I mean, during it is completely like the area design itself it's changed entirely. I
No,
mean,
although
the
you
client was
change the
limited with the
design,
budget. Yes.
you change the design, but the situation it forced you to take alternative. So here you have a task in hand. So what do you want to achieve? Yes,
Yes.
Mr. Joshi, you want to say something here?
No, sir. No, sir. It is,
Okay, it's fine.
only I will say that value management is that applied at a concept stage. That means rebar stage 0 or 1. But in value engineering, it applied in design stage. That means rebar stage, special design 3 or 3. I will only give this one. Good, sir.
Yes, of course. Uh, that is the thing. So here you have the requirement to find alternate solution. Although this gives you another stage of design that is going to be extended. Yes, of course, you have to find best value approach throughout the design development, but still you have to start this process with brainstorming and identifying the alternative solutions to apply something, because it was not like go with open-minded, like you are developing the project from beginning. So now you have some constraint to accommodate the best value within that constraint. It is somewhat value engineering workshop you have to start with, but again, so you can't stop there. When you continue the design development, now you decided to utilize the parking lot where the space is available. So that section you decided based on brainstorming in a value engineering workshop. After which you continue with design development. During that phase, you proactively find ways to improve the best value. So that will be there. So that means that is value management. So value management will be there continuously whenever you do some design development.
Okay.
So
That's the area I was confused.
consider like when you are having some sort of uh, provisional sum. So you have some budget. So that budget it is going to have something similar to cost plan. So the further design development it will be like value management. Although you are not doing any value engineering exercise for a provisional sum scope, it is similar to that. So that is again you are having some sort of value management to maintain the cost control within the target. Okay, is it clear?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
that
Yes,
one,
sir.
yes. Thank you, Joshi. So this is particularly when you apply the value engineering at a later stage, always it is going to be a difficult one because it will not be easy like value management. Value management is the process. Proactively you are looking the ideas to develop best value. But when it comes to value engineering, when you move with project during the construction, if you incur any value engineering exercise to do because of material scarcity or specific type of specialty unavailability or some particular restriction in logistics to do something, you are finding alternative methods or materials to find out. That time the cost may be high. Even though you are trying to minimize, it will be very difficult to achieve the value. Although you are doing value engineering exercise, if you are doing at later stage. So right time, always trying to do this is between somewhere like you are a commercial manager with the employer or main consultant or a supervising consultant before tendering process or during the tendering process. You can do some value engineering exercise or you can ask the bidders to submit some alternative solutions that will come into the picture without any contractual obligations. But later, if you go with the construction phase, and at that time, maybe the contractors, they may find ways to minimize the cost to save more towards their profitability and avoid utilizing the contingency, better methods to achieve the quality. You can do as a commercial manager from the contractor side. Otherwise, if you are doing it for the client, then this value engineering benefit as per FIDIC standard, it has to be shared. Either any proportional arrangements within the standard contract or anything that is specific for the employer that may be there. So that is another constraint. So these things you have to consider and advise about what is value engineering and what is value management. Okay. So next one is risk management and analysis, particularly for contingency allowances. Your latest cost plan shows a 200 million capital cost after a formal risk workshop. The risk register shows a range of potential cost impacts. Describe your process for determining the appropriate cost contingency, including the different types of contingency you would advise the client to hold, because this is coming into the capital cost. Anybody wants to try or share your experience or knowledge?
200 million capital cost to formal risk workshop. We will advise the client to hold.
Because we have to, first of all, we have to, when we prepare some sort of risk analysis, we have to take the risk register. First of all, we have to take it from the benchmark of similar projects, what kind of risk we happen to have or common risk that do occur to the specific type of project, and define each risk and brainstorm and identify likelihood and impact matrix, probabilities, cost model, Monte Carlo analysis on the top 10 to 15 key risk. That is generally 20%. So that means it will give the cost of around 80% probability of not exceeding the total budget. So these types of contingency you have to do when you are doing design contingency, which is QoS controlled for risk associated with design development, ambiguity, then managed by QoS and drawn down as the design is fixed. Now design development completed, then it will come down. So construction contractors contingency, that is different. So that usually included in your tender price. So those risk managed by the contractor. So unforeseen ground conditions, weather or authority requirement, those kind of risk transferred to the contractor. So they have to see how they are going to utilize that contingency allowances within their tender price. So this one for major risk like a scope change, economic risk or force majeure, this still retained by the client, and you have to give some sort of advice to maintain contingency allowance for this kind of risk. Okay. Any additional points or something to add here, Mr. Joshi?
No, sir. No, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Next one is about new rules of measurement, NRM 1 and 3. Explain the primary purpose of NRM 1 and NRM 3. So here it is not about NRM 2. When preparing a final elemental cost plan, how would the inclusion of risk, value management and fee under NRM 1 as opposed to just the works improve the client's ability to manage their budget? So this is again at design development stages only, prior to the pre-contract stage. So here particularly, if we see, we have to understand the structure and strategic use of the NRM. So NRM, what is the purpose of NRM 1? It provides detailed order of cost estimating and cost planning structure. So it is primarily for capital cost. NRM 3 provides a detailed structure for building maintenance, renewals and operations cost. So it is primarily supporting you for whole life costing, operations and maintenance costing. So this will give you benefit from NRM 1 cost element group, like you can say the project design team fees and again other development cost. This ensures the total development cost is captured and benchmarked. Again, consistently you will include contingency, and any other tax that is important to consider on the overall NRM1 structure forces the client to acknowledge and control the full financial commitment. So that is what required from the client. So this you will advise linking the cost plan directly to the funding and financing processes. Okay, let us move on to next one. BCIS standard form of cost analysis. This is particularly about the form of cost analysis that is provided by BCIS. Your firm has an in-house database using a bespoke element structure that is not matching to NRM1 or something. Why is it essential to map this data to the BCIS standard form of cost analysis before using it for benchmarking or submission to BCIS? Okay, we are not going to submit since we are in different region, but to make it as a benchmark, to utilize it for different regions, then you have to consider carrying two different regional or locality. That is the case. So here you have to see data standardization and comparability. You want to compare with something, your in-house data, then automatically, yes, of course, you have to make it in the same elemental breakdown similar to the industry standard. Otherwise, you will not be able to compare your data. Although your in-house data has some reliability for your own purpose, but still you want to make comparison with industry standard, then of course we have to do some standardization. So here the particularly uniformity and consistency in classifying cost. So it precisely defines what is included in the each element, like preliminaries, contingency, exclusion, substructure definition. Those kind of things you can consider. Like benefit, what is the benefit? Mapping ensures your in-house data is like for like apple to apple. You are not comparing apple to orange, because when you are like in the initial question we have been discussing about, when you do have limited in-house data, that means scarcity of data, but BCIS has very vast database that can be compared to understand for a specific project. If your projects are not purposefully, it is specific or precise, that can be applied directly to your future project. So in that case, comparing it with BCIS kind of vast or standardized data, then it will be helpful for you to understand, yes, of course, you are on the right track with cost estimate and cost planning. So that is the purpose. You are developing your data into international standards and comparing it with the standardized data for benchmarking purpose. Otherwise, what will happen? Your benchmarking will be misleading. Maybe some sort of risk do present that is unknown to you and no allowance may available from the client. Then who will be blamed? That is the case. Again, your advice, it has to go with your PAI cover. If you claim one time, then next time you are even arranging the PAI insurance, it will be costly for you, because every insurer, he will get penalized for claiming by increasing the cost of the insurance itself. So next time when you go and pay the premium, it will be more. So that is the case. You have to keep yourself safe when you are advising the client about some sort of professional advice using your benchmark data. That's why they are insisting here of standardizing your benchmark data to compare with the international standard and identify any unknown risk and do provide advice accordingly. That's what it will help to maintain your in-house data to the specific of wider industry application. Okay, let us move on to next question, which is about building information modeling, BIM. As a QS, how can you use a BIM model like a level 2 or level 3 to enhance the accuracy of your elemental cost plan and facilitate cost control during the construction phase? So this is already elemental cost plan. They are doing it during the early stage, and again they are asking how it will be helpful to control the cost during the construction phase also. So we have to see what specific application of BIM for advanced quantity surveying? So it has to be like cost plan accuracy means 5D. So this dimension, usually 3D means three-dimensional structure. It is up to the design detailing. And when you are adding time data, it is becoming 4D. Once it becomes 5D, then only you will get cost plan accuracy. So you have to have 5D BIM. Adding cost data, 5D allows automated quantity extraction, QTO, like quantity takeoff from the model itself, like concrete volume, wall area. This is faster and reduces human error. Although you have to do manual check to clarify or something goes with your benchmark data, if something abnormal, you have to identify and see the root cause. Maybe something, because again, the BIM system, it is helpful to identify any clash detection kind of things that proactively help you to resolve issues during the design development. But still, the input what you do by the human, it is going to be the human error. Again, this will lead to some other cost data extracted from the BIM itself being wrongly misleading. So you have to have clearly verified for human error when you are implementing BIM also. So this helps you to improve the accuracy and provide elemental cost plan, especially for complex elements, because you are having so much complex elements, then manually calculating each and everything will be time taking. So if you are having BIM, that is certainly helpful, and 5D model can be linked to the project's work breakdown structure. You can take into each deliverable elements. So when there is a change proposed during the construction stage or anything, the QS can quickly run a change control report to see any cost or program impact. That is also you can extract from the BIM itself. So that is helpful, and it is enabling you informed cost control decisions on timely manner without taking too much of time to take decisions. You can do it immediately with the help of BIM. These are the advantages for a QS to use BIM during the design development and also during the cost control of construction phase. Anything you want to add here or discuss any further details? Okay, if nothing, let us move on to next question, which is RACS Code of Measurement Practice and IPMS and ICMS. IPMS is the International Property Measurement Standard. This is similar to what you will use for unit rates like grass floor area, those kind of things and all you will do in the property measurement. That is particularly applicable for real estate kind of setup. It's not directly to the construction. And the ICMS, that is specific to the construction. So although we have NRM 1, 2, 3, that is detailed and sufficient enough for RACS professionals, but still RACS advises to have knowledge and understanding towards IPMS and ICMS, since global QS presence and practices are critical for applying international standards. That is the reason these two are included. These are the development from the coalition of many organizations around the world, that is including of RACS. These are global standards application and differentiating the purpose. So first one is property valuation, that is measuring floor area in a building, office, residential, industrial. Yes, please. Hello. Okay, sorry, something. Because IPMS, they are having like a for office buildings, specific application they have in the IPMS. And again, it has to ensure the consistency for valuation, leasing, and agency. So these are the details further provides when it is defining the net lettable area, grass internal area, those kind of things. This is irrespective of location because it is international standard. And when you give these kind of things, it ensures transparency in property investments. You know very well how you are measuring, based on the international standards. That will be helpful for you. And ICMS, it is particularly for construction cost focus. This is a standard particularly classifying, recording and presenting construction project cost with the high level of detail like cost categories and groups, elements. This is also providing the global cost reporting framework. That is also there. You will find cost reporting framework that is helpful to submit reports to the client. This enables reliable international cost benchmarking, particularly what is the criticality of using IPMS to calculate the revenue generating areas. How would you achieve income when you are developing something? So you need to see for either rentable or lettable or saleable. How do you calculate the ratio like a value benchmark? It is how much cost per unit on the scale of rental value or sale value. ICMS is used particularly again for cost benchmark of construction. Yes, of course, this will be compared with the cost benefit analysis between the ICMS cost value and the IPMS cost value. So a global QS must use both to advise a client on financial feasibility or viability, you can say. So anywhere in the world, that will be helpful to achieve global standard. Okay, so these are the main skill areas that is listed out under the design economics and cost planning. Although many aspects that will be helpful for you to work better with your quantification and costing and commercial management of construction works. So it is important to understand. So why we have certain use of IPMS and ICMS. The same thing is included in your quantification and costing for knowledge level, although it is not particularly important for application level. Application always it is to your own experience. You may be working in a completely bespoke condition where there are no standard forms or measurement practices are applied. Then you have to be very specific to your own experience examples. When you go for RACS APC, you have to bother more about your own experience. You can define that in a very well manner that is sufficient for your APC success. Although at knowledge level, you should appreciate that there are global standard, RACS published standards, and we have certain application for them when you go at global level. That is what it is important to understand. So we are at the end of the questions prepared for this session. So if you have anything specific related to this or something different from this.
Nothing. Difficult. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you for your
Thank you, sir.
sharing of knowledge.
Yes.
Thank you for joining. We will call this as a day and have a nice work week ahead.
Thank you so much, sir.
See you all in the next session. Good night.
Thank you.
Yes.
Right.
Good night. Good night.